So just a quick introduction about who we are. So we actually started as a trade association on CBD when CBD became legal in France around 2020 with the cannabis ruling in Europe. And we extended our actions to medical cannabis as soon as 2021 when the French pilot program on medical cannabis started. So our goal as a trade association is we represent businesses and we're here to help regulators in building the future regulation and also helping the industry growing. And of course, we do a lot of education. As you can imagine, both with both public and private actors. For instance, we work through the French Public Investment Bank to allow public money to pour into cannabis companies. Here you go. So what we cover is basically everything related to cannabinoids, whether it's as an ingredient for the packaged goods industry or as an API for the pharmaceutical industry. What we do not cover is recreational cannabis. Why? Because right now, recreational cannabis is considered, as you know, as a narcotic, and today, I mean, it's not a topic for businesses. Also, we cover all the scope from the seed to the final product. So that means every step of the way, including what can seem like other activities like testing, distribution, etc. So just to give you an idea of who our members are, so we actually are open to international members. About 15% are outside of France. For instance, we have all the members of a current French pilot program. So you might know, for instance, Little and Green Pharma from Australia, or we have other players even in Germany. Most of our members are either people from the food supplement industry, so on the CBD side, or from the pharma industry, more on the medical side. And we have various actors from distribution, so supermarket chains, maybe some of you know, pharmacy groups, testing labs, etc., etc. So our goals as a trade association, of course, was to first secure a framework for CBD in food supplements, which we did back at the end of 2022 and which was implemented in 2023. And on medical cannabis, the goal was to ensure that the pilot program would actually become something and not just a wish to do something, especially as it was supposed to last for 2 years. And now, as we're moving into the fourth and final year, France is going to be moving with medical cannabis in January. And the way we work is pretty straightforward. We have different working groups where all the members participate, and where we come together and discuss about regulation and what we should basically ask the authorities. So, as you can imagine, it depends on the current situation. Right now, the most active working group is the one on medical cannabis, with all the different parties involved. So right now the big topic is on working on the authorization procedure to declare your medicines in France. So we have, depends, but basically meetings every 1 to 2 weeks. So these are all the sort of people we talk to at both French and European level. As you probably know and are aware, France is a pretty high, complicated country with a lot of administration. So we have a lot of people to talk to, and of course, everyone is sort of involved in the process, whether it's from the finance ministry, the police, the health ministry, agriculture. It's a bit of a maze, and we have a lot of administrations as well. And we're also present at European level. This is really important for us because since we have members throughout Europe, we're regularly invited in different working groups at the European Commission to participate in different works. The way we work is we try to give a lot of information and confidential information to our members. So the way we do this is either through our weekly newsletter or for our member platform on Notion, which probably some of you know, and we do host a sort of a monthly conference meeting where we come up with all the regulation. So to talk a bit more about medical cannabis market in France and in Europe, maybe just some context on the general market in Europe. As most of you probably know, so out of 27 countries in Europe, 22 have actually started working on a cannabis program. But of course, right now the biggest market being Germany, with of course the law that came through in April. The figures that we have here, I mean, we're pretty aligned with them. That we believe in the long run, Europe should be the biggest or maybe second biggest market in the world, especially with France and the UK and countries like this gearing up. And we see, at least from our point of view, we see it more as a medical market rather than anything else, especially when you look at the current European regulation that sort of prevents any big recreational market to open up. And I think that's basically what happened in Germany. Interestingly enough, when you also look at what kind of population it could cover, if you look at the conditions that are eligible to medical cannabis around Europe, we believe that up to 1% of the population could be eligible to medical cannabis in the long run. So I think all of you know the figures for Germany, Italy, and the UK. But if I go to the French market, so we believe that France could be. Sorry, there's a typo on the slide. It's 2028, not 2025. So we believe that France could be as big as 300 million euros by 2028. We believe that you have to realize that this pilot program has been going on for 3.5 years now. So we already have some experience with cannabis. And sure, I mean, France took their time in building the regulation, but we think it's the most ambitious regulation in Europe when it comes to medical cannabis. Probably the toughest one, but the one which is going to bring, I'd say, a good price also on the market. So if you will look at the experiment and what happened, so right now we have about 2,000 patients in the French pilot program. Which were given 2 types of products, so oils and flowers. What you need to know is that flowers were removed of the program for the last year. So basically, we're just running on the existing stock. So we're actually run out. They're going to run out at the end of the month. So that means that all flowers are going to be used. All patients are going to be using just oils. And right now we have about 800, let's call them healthcare facilities, that are participating in the pilot program. So these are hospitals or services in hospitals that are prescribing medical cannabis to patients that are currently in for which regular treatments are not working. So we have 5 medical conditions. I'll go back to these a bit later on. So our goal as the trade association from the sector, and including the members from the pilot program, was to discuss with the authorities what kind of framework they would put in place and to make sure that this pilot program would actually be transformed into a full legalization of medical cannabis. So we actually worked for a few months in making sure everyone would agree on what we're proposing and working with a specialized lawyer in proposing this to the authorities. So the goal was to make sure that we have a good quality system to work on the authorization procedure, on how pricing would work. Pricing, as you can imagine, is really important, and most of all, how these products should be evaluated by the HAS is the French High Health Authority. It's an independent body that evaluates all the medicine to come up with a reimbursement rate, because as you probably know, France has one of the most generous social system in the world, where basically all your medicine is usually free. And for cannabis, what you have to know, which is really important, is that because most of the patients that are eligible to medical cannabis are in what we call long-term afflictions, regardless of the actual reimbursement rate of a medicine, they should be covered up to 100%. So even if a medicine goes through the process of the HAS and gets, let's say, 30% reimbursement, since most of the patients are in this long-term affliction, they would get 100% refunded. So that means you can go to the pharmacy, get your cannabis prescription, and don't pay anything. Also, 2 other important things was, of course, how prescribing will work with doctors and how it will work in pharmacies. So right now, as part of a program, only doctors in hospitals are allowed to prescribe, but patients get their product directly in pharmacies. So as a trade association, our goal was to make sure that we had a special framework which was adapted to cannabis-based medicine, that we can guarantee access to these treatments, and also, as I mentioned, coverage for the patients, really important was no restrictions on formats. What we've seen around Europe with preparation, such as Germany, with preparation status, is that we have a clear limit on what we can actually sell. So basically just tinctures and flour, which is not really, it doesn't really help innovation. So our goal was to make sure that you could do any format in France. And also that potentially in the future, the conditions for which you could get medical cannabis would be extended, and same goes for prescription. So basically, what the government shows is pretty aligned with what we've been pushing for. So they're going to go with a finished product status that is comparable to what we get on other prescription drugs. So it's going to be a 5-year authorization renewed by 5-year period. So that's exactly the same as other prescription drugs. And it's going to be only on finished products. So that means that you will have your finished product registered with a French health authority. And as a format, there will be no restrictions except for flowers. So one important thing about flowers is what we've been trying to get. I mean, their goal was to avoid any confusion with recreational cannabis. I mean, although we don't agree, we understand the logic. So what we've been pushing for is to allow flowers as long as it's in a secured format, let's say a cartridge, which you can't reload or you can't open up. So this should go through in the coming days, but apparently this is going to be allowed. And in terms, so to apply for an authorization, you need to be a pharmaceutical lab or considered as such in France or European law. So that means that most cannabis companies that are around Europe will actually have to find a partner lab in France to actually get into the market. In terms of prescription and dispensing, so it's going to be sort of the same framework. The initial prescription will be in hospitals for patients in the last line of treatment, and then it can be renewed by any GP. So that means you need to go to the hospital to get your first prescription. So let's say it's for a pain specialist, for instance, and then you can get it renewed by your GP. A really important thing is, but this last line of treatment thing, what we've noticed in the pilot program, especially for pain treatments, is that doctors tend to prescribe medical cannabis before opioids because they consider cannabis to have a better risk profile. So even though this is supposed to be the case, this last line of treatment thing is not respected. So what's going to happen in the coming months? So we're waiting. So this legalization of medical cannabis was actually validated in the 2024 healthcare budget, and now we're still waiting on 3 different pieces of legislation. So one should be ready soon and sent to the European Commission in the next few days. And we're right now in a sort of a transition period, which is between the official end of the experiment of the pilot program, which was in March 26th, so up to the end of the year. And the goal for the authorities is to adopt the final legislation before December 31st to allow for the procedure to start, and so that we can actually get medicine validated before 1st of January and then roll out the medical program. So in terms of eligible conditions, you have the 5 eligible conditions here. Of course, the biggest one here being neuropathic pain. Why? Because out of the patients that are in the first category, about 40% of them are considered to be resistant to current treatments. So that means that the biggest patient base is here, and which could be up to 300,000 patients in France in the long run. So in terms of next steps, we are waiting on a few texts. So one is related to cultivation of medical cannabis. So this should come out somewhere around October. The big piece will be the one on specifications for medicine, which should come out in the next few days. Although it's not going to be adopted as of now, it's going to be notified to the European Commission, and then it's going to go back to France to be adopted somewhere around September, October. So that means the authorization process will start around then. I'll have a timeline in the next slides. And then we're also waiting for a decree on the reimbursement. So this piece is really important because it's going to be the one around how these medicines are going to be evaluated by the French health authority. So it's going to give us a good indication what basically the French healthcare system is willing to pay. What we know is that this is going to be based on different indications. So we might see different reimbursement rates depending on the condition. So this is what happened last year, just so that you have an idea. So the discussion around the status was going on basically all of that last year. In autumn, they voted the end of a pilot program measure and transform into common law. So this was the piece of legislation that goes through the annual social security budget in France. And after that, we were in that last phase of consultation with the parties on specification on drugs, etc. So right now we are at the June mark, waiting for the specification text to be notified to the European Commission, so that is part of the EU law. Basically, the European Commission and other member states have 3 months to do any comments on regulation that France wants to adopt. So that means that at the soonest, the authorization process to register your medicine will start in September. There is a pretty short timeline. So just so you know, this June notification was supposed to happen initially somewhere between January and March. So as you can see, there's been some major delays. So there's a slight possibility that they sort of extend the transition period maybe up to March 2025, and then the market would open then. It's a possibility. It's not, right now, it's not the most likely option. And I think we have about 8 minutes for questions, so feel free.